How to calm the anxiety around the idea that I will never find love. This is actually a user request from one of the viewers, and it says, could you do some videos about how to calm the anxiety and depression over worrying you will never find love or be loved again after the first heartbreak? Yeah, this is a big one. Let me see what we can do about that. First, I'm Kirby. I'm a specialist in trauma and attachment theory. I shoot these videos all the time. Building this channel, really a lot of it's just getting the stuff that's been in my mind for years, getting it out into a place where I think will help people. And that's one of my passions on earth. Okay, so here's the topic. There was a time when I felt it. Like, I felt that feeling that someone loves me. And it's probably the first time. Because the ending of the first time is oftentimes the most difficult. And what that's telling us is that I went without it for so long, that I had all this time and years and experiences of just getting by, of doing the things I'm supposed to do, doing what mommy and daddy told me, getting good grades in school or not. It really doesn't matter. The thing that matters here is that from an attachment point of view, your nervous system was craving and always has craved this feeling and sensation of like someone has got me. There's a person there that wants me. They choose me and they will prioritize me over many things, maybe everything. And I struggled with this myself, and that's in really teasing that apart is how I got to this conclusion that like the core craving that I keep seeing over and over and over in basically every case is just there's a person there. There's this like inner child, nervous system, subconscious, whatever we want to call it, that's just sitting there saying, I want somebody to want me. Like I will feel good when somebody wants me. It will all feel better when someone is choosing me and prioritizing me, because when that's not happening, it feels yucky. It feels terrible. And so it happens and we step into this romantic relationship and then there's a person there and they're showing me the signs. You know, they're calling me a lot. They are coming over, they're checking up on me, they want to know my inner world, they're asking me how I'm doing, they're buying me flowers, they're, rubbing their body against mine, like all these things that I've never had before, and here it is the first time. And it just feels like, oh my God, it's just like being on cloud nine, right? It's dopamine to the universe and beyond. Euphoria. And then we enjoy it and we don't ever want it to end, because for the first time, it's like it actually feels good. Not just good, but like better than any other thing, better than all other things. And when it feels better than all other things, we don't want it to end and we don't want to spend our time on anything else. And then it comes to an end. And maybe it was dramatic, maybe it was bitter, maybe it was fighting, maybe whatever. It comes to an end, and then it's not just I lost my partner. It's not just, hey, I was in a romantic, had a boyfriend and now I don't. It's not just that. It's not that I had a husband or wife and now I don't. It's that, yes, I lost that. And I lost all the social status that comes with that, because virtually every culture on earth prioritizes partnership over singlehood. And so when I'm in partnership, I'm getting all this social status and people are approving of me and asking, oh, how did we meet? And, oh, isn't this so romantic and everything else? All these eyes of people out there, strangers and friends alike, are looking at me and saying, yeah, that's a good thing, and oh, that's a bad thing that you're single now, right? So that's happening too. So now I have to like deal with that emotional payload. And then I also just lost my best friend because when euphoria spikes that high, people just become completely wrapped up with one another. And it's like, this feels so good. This relationship is paramount and superior to all others. And so the amount of energy and value I put on my friendships is way less. And then I lose the all the glorious happy chemicals that come about from being physically affectionate and sexual release and all that kind of stuff. I lose all that too. And then I lose all the dreamy futures that we had together. All this like, this is my one, this is my person, we're going to get married, we're going to have kids, we're going to have whatever. Like all the future tripping. I love that term, future tripping. All the future tripping that we were doing together. Usually it's together. If you've got euphoria that spikes that high, it's usually both people are participating. But it also happens where only one person is future tripping. So all that future tripping, dreaming of this amazing future where it's just like I'm going to be loved and cherished and cared for and prioritized and chosen, and all the gooey yumminess that is I've been craving my whole life. I lose all that too. That thing, that future, that like this moment right here is so much better than anything else I've experienced in life. Like I know exactly what that feels like. I went through that several times. And then the future that I'm tacking onto it, because it's like, this feels so good. If it feels this good, it must be real. It must be right. How can anything that feels this good be wrong? How many times have we seen that in a nasty, lucky romance movie? So, but we see those movies and we see it in the books and everything else. All this messaging around romance comes into our brains. Unless you're abstaining from books, movies, magazines, periodicals, internet blogs, blah, 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 YouTube, everything else. Unless you're abstaining from all that, these messages are coming into your brain. And without any kind of intellectual antibody to put those in perspective and ward them off, they land and they try to take root. And they take root very, very firmly in the places where attachment traumas exist. The more attachment traumas I have, and the bigger the void, the bigger the pain, the more that romantic ideas will take root, the more that romance takes root. Because romance is selling this promise that someone's going to prioritize you over everything else. And so then it goes away, and then my entire nervous system goes into utter chaos. And yeah, sometimes it feels like death. I already have a video on that one, but it's just like, if there's any doubt, it's there, right? Okay, so then what happens is it's gone. And now I live here in this space where I don't know if it's ever going to happen again. And one day goes by, 2 days goes by, a week, a month. Maybe I'm still hung up on my ex. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm actively healing, going to the gym, doing all the distractive things we're supposed to do. But yet I still feel this ever-present sense of anxiety in my life that it's just like, is it going to happen? Right? Am I ever going to find love again? That's what the viewer's asking. Yeah, the anxiety is about the bad situation. I'm afraid, and I have this ever-present sense of anxiety inside myself, this fear that like I'm going to end up in this life where I am alone, that nobody wants me. All those yummy, delicious, juicy bits that I just experienced, that I'm never going to get that again. So it's like, we see poetry about this, and, especially from the romantic period, where they'll just go into this thing where it's just like, oh my God, I feel this love and this passion and this, this pleasure to the heights of human capacity. And then it's taken from me in such vile, tragic occurrence. And, that's what this is all about. It's basically like, you gave me something good and now it's gone. And the fact that it's gone makes me makes me miss the good stuff even more and makes me hate my life now. And then what do we see? What happens next? Right? People get fixated in that little moment and they forget to look at the whole story. The whole story is that person swings down through this low period, and then usually, not always, sometimes they stay in the low period forever. Unfortunately, those people exist, and I really want to find a way to help them. But in most cases, those people swing down through a low period, and then they find the next one, and then they shoot back up again, and then their whole life becomes this roller coaster of highs and lows and highs and lows and highs and lows. And anyone who's kind of in the vicinity of them is just like, wow, this is really fatiguing. Like, but that's the whole story. So what do we do? That's what this question is about. How do I deal with that anxiety? We already know that anxiety is just a fancy name for fear. And you're not going to like what I have to say. Okay, let's take this in 2 steps. The solving of anxiety is twofold. There's 2 approaches to it. One of them is the short term. There's the short game. And the short game is, how can I help my nervous system stay below overwhelm? How can I help my nervous system be calm enough that I can just be stressed out and not cascade into an endless spinning of overwhelm and pressing thoughts and rumination and, self-hatred and depression and all that stuff, right? So that's the short game. The short game is we need to find a way to make sure that your nervous system stays healthy enough, regulated enough, balanced enough to not go into the place that's too far. That's one side of dealing with anxiety. The other side of dealing with anxiety is to recognize that the anxiety is coming from a root issues that are deep under the surface, and we need to begin a practice of exercises and tactics that will deal with that root issue under the surface and begin to resolve it. Begin to resolve this fear, to discharge the fear, to rectify it to the way that you say, it's not actually that scary anymore. So, because if I can rectify the fear, if I can take all that emotional intensity and terror that lives there in that space around that idea, and I can dissolve that into the ether, then what happens is that in my lived experience day to day, I don't have that anxiety anymore. There's nothing to be afraid of. Anxiety is just fear. Can I resolve the fear? Yes. If you so choose. If you put your focus into it, right? But because of the way this question is worded, I'm going to assume we're talking more about the first one, is that my nervous system is absolutely freaking out. What do we do about that? And I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. There's several approaches I know of, several approaches I've used. Let's just list them out. There's this thing called traumatic release exercises, or TRE, where and there's many videos on YouTube. I'll eventually have one on this channel, but I would like to kind of find a practitioner that I really like and I want to celebrate, and then basically have a little video recorded session of it. But until that time, go find one of the other ones. And TRE consists of basically, I think there's 5, maybe 6 exercises you do, in the sense that it's really just a hold position. It's like standing up on your tiptoes or doing a wall sit, a seated chair against the wall kind of thing. And the reason you do this is because you're burning up all the excess glycogen stores in major muscle groups, like your gluteus maximus and your quadriceps and some in your abdomen. And when you burn up all the glycogen stores, then you put the muscles into a slightly strained state. Not fully strained, but slightly strained. And that involves getting down on the ground with your knees in kind of this V-shaped position. Not too upright, because then gravity's holding them up, and not too far apart, because then kind of the general tension of the muscles is holding them up. You kind of want to be in this mid-range, almost like at a 45. And then what happens is the knees will begin to kind of shudder, or tremor is what they call it. The tremoring does something. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that claim that title themselves, I don't know, they label themselves somatic practitioners. I meet them all the time. And I, I want to approach this with the greatest respect because I don't really know what their study is. I've not been through their schools or certification programs or whatever. So I don't know. But it's, to me, maybe it's just my level of obsessive attention to things that, like, for me, I'm just like, I want to understand how it works. I want to understand the history of it. I want to understand these kinds of things, right? And it's like, I don't know if anybody really fully understands how this works. But what seems to be kind of the model that makes the most sense to me is that there seems to be, our nervous system kind of has two methods. Like one receives data and the other one sends signals to activate muscles. And so in the tremoring bit, it's activating like what they call the motor cortex, which is the part that is activating muscles. And that seems to be more closely connected to wherever trauma lives than the sensory bit. And so there's a lot of things that kind of fall under the umbrella of somatic practicing that have to do with connecting to the body, activating the body, and then listening to the body. And there's something in there that is a little bit magical, right? Like I said, I'm not sure anyone fully understands it, but there's a lot of theories about what's going on there. And yeah, someday I'll get a researcher of notable magnitude and I'll get them on this channel and we'll have a talk about it. And that will be a glorious day. But until then, look it up on YouTube, look up TRE, find a practitioner in your area if you can. And this is why, is that when you induce your body into a tremoring state, there is this discharge of energy. You're like consuming lots and lots of metabolic calories. And it's almost like you're sucking out all this extra gasoline, juice, whatever, fuel. And in that, it seems to be that that it uses up all the fuel that's in the muscles and then in all that kind of muscular system. And then it begins pulling fuel out of the places where emotional payload lives, like where the intense emotions live. And if you subscribe to the Lisa Feldman Barrett model of emotions, which I do, she's a superstar, and she was just on, I just saw this morning, she was just on Diary of a CEO. Go watch that one. She's amazing, and I will be one of the happiest people on earth when I finally get to sit down with her. Lisa, if you're ever watching, call me. So if you subscribe to Lisa Feldman Barrett model, it's that emotions are a preliminary charge that is basically fed to your system. Basically, your system pre-charges to act in a certain way in accordance with a certain kind of threat or stimulus that's on the outside. And when that system gets pre-charged, what we sense an emotion. The thing that percolates up through that whole system into our brain is that we kind of group, go through these layers of approximations, and then what shows up in our brain is something we're just going to say anger or sadness or whatever. And so the way that these two things connect is that you get your major muscle groups into a state where they're consuming way more metabolic resources than they usually do. And it will suck up all the all the stuff that's kind of floating around, and then it will begin tapping into all these preloaded action plans that show up as muscles or show up as emotions. And when we do that, we basically just suck all the emotional charge out of that emotional state. I'm sorry if that's too cognitive, too sciencey, too whatever, but it's seriously the best model I've ever seen. I mean, I've been studying this stuff for like 10 years, and and I've seen a lot of theories and a lot of models, and I'm just like, this one is super interesting because you can hypothesize the sequence in which things work, and then you can go test it, and you can be like, if this is the way the sequence works, then it should show up like that on the other end, and it does. And so if you're going through a major crisis of anxiety, do this. Look up TRE, put it into your daily plan. of just being like, this is one of the ways that I am going to maintain the emotional health of my body, is to discharge this intensity and this emotional that is in there. And I'll tell you, the first time I did TRE, I was just like, I'd read about it and I'm getting all these ideas about how it functions and stuff. This is before I discovered Lisa Feldman Barrett, so still kind of in that space of magic. And I go into this practitioner who's a little bit less than legit, but the process was legit. And I lie down on the ground and we're going through this process, and she's like, look down at your knees. And I'm looking at my knees, and sure enough, they're wavering. And she's like, that's what we want. And I'm like, I just kind of said, okay, I permit this to happen. I'm not going to try to control. And it took over my body, and I was sobbing like a baby. And the thing is, I have no idea what I was sobbing about. I didn't actually feel, in that particular moment that afternoon, I didn't actually feel sad about anything. But obviously I was. And it was this profound release. And when I stepped, and it probably lasted for an hour, and when I stepped out of that office and into the sunshine, that was kind of like cool spring morning, I felt lighter than I'd felt in weeks. I was like, something just happened. What was that all about? And so I went and figured out how to do it myself. And then I began integrating into my regular practice. And I was just like, oh. And then I started teaching other people how to do it. And just like everything else, you get out what you put in. Give it time, give it attention, give it something. Okay, so that's one option. Now, sometimes people are like, I'm at work or I've got friends around me. I don't want to be embarrassed and all that kind of stuff. What else can I do? And it's like, there's this idea of the box breathing, which I didn't use it so much myself, but I have seen it. I've guided other people through it, and I've seen it have positive benefits. And the idea with the box breathing is that it's just like you've got this period of time, which is about 5 seconds, and each branch of the box is 5 seconds. And one of them is an inhale. So you inhale for 5, then you hold it for 5, you exhale for 5, you hold that for 5. So it might be like in, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, and so on, right? What this is doing is it's asking the discipline part of your brain to come online with something so simple as breathing. Now, anxiety is a fear response, which is a threat response, which is a survival response. Anxiety is a survival response. Your deepest core bit of your subconscious or inner child, however you want to call that, is basically sees some situation that feels absolutely threatening. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be unwanted. I'm going to get kicked out. I am going to be alone, unwanted, and a burden to the tribe, or they're going to kick me out. Like everyone's going to find me so unwanted and unused and whatever that they're just going to kick me out of the tribe, and I'm going to be alone on the plains of the Serengeti, and of course be eaten by a leopard. So we don't want that. Anxiety is a survival response. I'm trying to prevent a situation that will lead to my imminent demise. So if I try to fight that fear directly, my survival system will win every time. So if I say, hear people all the time, it's just like, stop being afraid of that. And it's like, that doesn't work. Like you can't take a terrified little child and say, stop being afraid of alligators or stop being afraid of abandonment. Like, no, that doesn't work. You have to give it. So you can't use discipline directly against a survival response. That'll just fail every time. What you can do though is you can use discipline on something that is not related to the fear reaction, the survival reaction, and in doing so, it increases blood flow to certain parts of the brain where you have that might help, right? And so the idea here is that the box breathing is that the speed at which you breathe is not related to my survival response. And so my survival system is being like, I'm worried. And say, that's cool. You be over there and be terrified. I'm going to go over here and like draw this little box with my breath, and we're going to all have a great time. And it turns out that doing the box breathing increases blood flow to the portions of my brain that control discipline, control, regulation. And as the blood flow increases to my discipline, control, regulation sections, it then kind of has this cascading effect that expands out through the neural networks. And that part that's super anxious and terrified is being like, oh, we have some control coming in. We have some safety coming in. We have, like, look around. Like, I'm still terrified about being alone, but look, like, the overall state of the neural network in my brain is actually settling into a more calm state. And then that says, oh, maybe I should calm down too. At least that's the theory. Okay, so now we've heard a lot of people talk about box breathing. And then there's this other bit where people talk about they call it EFT tapping, I think, where it's like tapping various parts of the body. And it's my understanding of that, mostly through the Bessel van der Kolk stuff, is that there's something about left, right, left, right, left, right, because left is activating one portion of the brain and right is activating, right's activating the left portion of the brain, left is activating the right portion of the brain, right? Because there's this crossover back there in the back of the spine. And so there's this thing where it's like, as you go back and forth, either in sensory input or sensory activation, that it increases it's like you've got a task over here on one side of the brain, and then it's like, oh, we need to do it over here on this other side. And so then, like, all the attention and neurological activity, I don't know, you may know how it works. Anyway, it shoots across that kind of midbrain connective stuff. And it shoots across this way, and then it shoots back, and then it shoots across this way, and it shoots back. And my understanding of it is that process in general, basically each time it shoots across, it kind of like, again, there's this discipline, regulated, controlled aspect of that stuff that's moving back and forth that kind of spreads out into other portions of the brain. Okay, cool. So can we put these two together to have an exercise that I can do while I'm sitting in my cubicle at work right after my boss yelled at me? It's like, yeah, I can. I can be like, I can count to 5. I can do box breathing, and I can activate the different parts of my left, right, right? So I go in, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, release, hold, in, hold, release, hold, right? And then as I'm on this side, the way I do it, no scientific evidence to back this up, by the way. I mean, like, this particular modality, this is a theory. This is something I found useful and something that I've shared with others. And I've watched their nervous system settle into a regulated state very quickly. And that is, like, we're basically drawing the boxes with our fingers like this, but the boxes are not the same, right? And so it's like in, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, settle, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so in doing this kind of action, I'm activating all sorts of crazy aspects of my brain, left and right stuff. And I have to, like, in managing my hands, I'm having to manage basically left and right at the same time. And then I'm breathing at the same time. And it's just like, basically what we're doing is we're flooding the brain with regulated command directives that don't seem to have any pushback from the survival system. Again, don't take this as gospel. I'm saying try it. If you have a propensity for heightened moments of anxiety, try this. See if it helps. TRE, box breathing. Any kind of massively strenuous exercise, like carrying boulders up a mountain, my guess is that has an impact on anxiety because, again, you're depleting all the glycogen stores, you're depleting all of the energy that is living inside the muscles, and then the emotional system kind of gets this consumption or reset. So very strenuous physical activity. But the problem with this one is it's massively increases your chance of injury. The thing to keep in mind that's very important here is that these techniques, and almost any technique that has to do with bringing regulation to the nervous system quickly, these are hacks. These are techniques to keep us in a state below overwhelm. And above overwhelm is where trauma happens in my world. And so we want to stay below that state of overwhelm. And so if you use techniques like this This is a short-term crutch. It's happened. The tsunami is coming. There's nothing I can do about it. I need to find a way to survive, right? When the real answer to a tsunami is going out 500 miles out in the ocean and addressing it when it's still small and we can catch it before the buildup happens. But at the moment that the tsunami is hitting the shore, there's very few options that we have at our disposal. And it's really just, can we stay alive? Can we do less harm? Can we find a way to survive this and endure it in a way that will not degrade the overall state of my nervous system? That's my job. When the tsunami moment comes, my job is basically just to endure without it getting worse. So TRE, box breathing, and various other modalities we hear about, those are not techniques for healing. Those are techniques for short-term crisis management. And it's really tragic. It's tragic because I did it. Like that. What I'm trying to say here is that I feel this sense of tragedy when I see people that are basically just jumping from one crisis management technique to another, and they think that that's what they have to do to deal with the anxiety in their life. They're like, I have all this anxiety, and I talked to this therapist or this coach or this whatever, and they told me, it's like, oh, I need to do tapping like this and tapping like this, and I need to do this, and that's what I need. That's just who I am now, right? This is one of the biggest tragedies there is, when someone is just takes on this idea that like this anxiety that lives inside me that will hijack my system and throw me in these extreme states of panic is just my identity now. And I need to use these wacky like crisis management techniques is just something that I got to do now. And it's like, no, not at all. Use the crisis management techniques in the moment of crisis. Sure, that's appropriate. Do what you can to survive this moment and get back to a place of calm and regulated safety, right? You have survived that tsunami. Congratulations. You're awesome, because that in itself is hard. But don't get into this idea that believing that that's what your reality is, and that crisis technique or anxiety management technique is the answer, because it's not. The answer is different. The answer is like going way, way out in the ocean, which means going back in time, going back into our memories, going deep into our nervous system, whatever, and understanding what is this little collection of beliefs and behavioral responses that boils upward, growing energy and power and overwhelming force as it grows. And by the time it crashes into my consciousness, I'm lost. Right? We have to go backwards through that chain and trace it all the way down to the point where we say, oh, this is what this is about. I'm just bloody terrified of being alone. I'm bloody terrified that I'm going to be alone forever. I'm bloody terrified that no one's ever going to choose me again. And that I'm a horrible thing. And that's where my terror comes from. And so these moments of peak anxiety are a reflection of that. And as long as you allow those beliefs to stay and take root, I mean, they've already taken root, but as long as you allow them to stay and keep pushing you around, you're going to keep having moments of anxiety. That is literally your body and your nervous system, the whole totality of you. That's literally the totality of you trying to tell you that something isn't right here. And so it needs attention. It needs attention in order to rectify it. It needs attention in order to discharge it, to untangle the knot, to bring in love and affection and compassion and nurturing energy and all that other kind of stuff. Like, these are the things that are needed so that this panic response, this sense that I am an impending threat of destruction, that if I do not find an answer, I will die here, right? That's what it's trying to tell you. The anxiety is a signal. It's a message to your conscious mind from the subconscious to say, hey, There's things here that need attention. There's things here we need to change something. And if we stay on this course, I'm going to keep putting this in your lap. And you're going to keep feeling it, and you're going to keep being miserable. And I will keep doing that over and over and over again until you get the message and you get off your ass and you change something. And doing tapping and TRE and box breathing, everything else, that's not the change that it wants. Like these are short-term fixes. Your nervous system is asking you to take ownership, to be courageous, to go into the darkest places, like go towards that cave that looks terrifying and walk right in and say, hey, fear, terror, wound, whatever lives here, I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to interact with you. I'm here to understand why you exist. And I want to help you. I want to help lead you into a better place. You do that, and the anxiety will go away. It will evaporate. I'm living proof. And it's like now, God, man, when you're on the other side, I get it. It's like when you're on the other side, you're like, is that even possible? Like, no, I'm different. I'm like my blah, blah, right. We tell ourselves all these stories. But once you're on the other side, this side where it's behind you, you're just like, oh my God, it's so obvious. It's so bloody obvious that it was like the more time I spent trying to avoid that thing I was terrified of, the more time I spent being terrified of it. And the true answer is to find the fear and stop being afraid of it. So if you're afraid of being alone, face that fear. That's what I did. Changed my life. I went from like, oh, I'm terrified of being unchosen and alone and unwanted. I'm just going to die in some foreign country, alone in some hospital bed, and nobody even knows. And I'm just going to be some anonymous thing that ends, a burden, right? That idea gave me endless depression, endless anxiety, endless suffering. Well, not endless, because I eventually did find the end of it. And the way I found the end of it was that I sat there on a rainy day in front of a fireplace and just said, I'm going to look this fear right in the eye and say, yes, I am going to end up in that hospital bed alone, unloved, unwanted. And I'm going to take that fear just by the jugular and say, I'm not going to turn away from you. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to distract or hide or eat sugar or do drugs or any of that stuff. I'm not going to numb out. I'm going to sit here and just be miserable with you. And I'm going to look you right in the eye and be like, yeah, this is going to happen. And I'm going to learn how to accept it. Because running from this my whole life has just been nothing but misery. So I'm going to sit here with this fear and say, I believe it to be true. I embrace it in its totality. And I deal with every nasty emotion that arises, and just fear and pain and misery and sadness and grieving. It's mostly grieving. And there's some anger there. So I go through the anger, which is sadness, and that releases grief. And then I go through the whole grieving process, and I'm just like, I am grieving this life that I wanted to be awesome, and it's not. And it ended in this ugly hospital bed in some country that I don't even know, right? And I go through that whole process until I'm just like, yep, that is the story. And I accept it, and I'm okay with it. And then what happens is I come out, I'm like, oh, I'm not anxious about that anymore, because it's not even scary. That eventual outcome of being unwanted, unloved, unchosen, I have faced that fear, walked through the crucible, and I come out the other side. I'm just like, God, sucks. Might even happen. But I'm like, I got all the time from now until then to live an awesome damn life. So let's go do that. And so I do. And then it's just like, wow, all these things become revealed and new opportunities. And guess what? Like new relationships come in and these people are actually choosing me. And I'm just like, this is awesome. But guess what? I don't need you to be choosing me for me to feel okay. Because I've already faced my fear. I've already dealt with the worst there is. And I'm okay with it, which means I can be open-hearted with you and open-hearted with the possibility you may walk away, and open-hearted with the possibility that you may walk away for reasons that a normal person would find painful. And it's just like, you are who you are. If that's your path, go walk your path. Because I've dealt with the worst there is, and I am totally at peace with it. Anxiety evaporates. Depression evaporates. May not be true for everyone. Who knows? But I lived it, I walked it, and now I teach it. And like sitting right here, well, right over there on that chair over there, working with people that come through my space and they want to talk to me. They see these videos, my in live classes or whatever, and they say, I want to learn from this guy. And I teach them, first off, to find their fear, because most of us are so busy running from it, we can't even see it. So I help people find that fear, and then we go through the process of rectifying it. And it's uncomfortable. It's really damn uncomfortable. Not saying it's not, and not saying it's easy, but we go through the process. And then it's just like, and I watch their eyes get brighter, and I watch their, like, the bounce in their step, and this like aliveness, and this freedom. You know, it's not the whole thing. It's not like, oh, you're totally healed, but it's like they're on this path, and the thing about being on the path is you get the positive feedback loop. They're feeling the good stuff. They wake up on a day and they say, I did not wake up with anxiety today. What's going on? Like, stick with that. Keep the process going. They keep the process going. They keep facing their fears. They keep working through it. And then they're just like, I have more days where I wake up without anxiety. And isn't that amazing? And I just had some viewer just a few days ago leave a comment on one of these YouTube posts. And there's just like, dude, I can't remember the last time I had a whole week where I was happy. And I just did. I've been watching your videos and integrating these ideas that you're presenting. And I just had 7 days in a row. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. I'm adding to what he said for dramatic, but you get the idea. Did not have any weeks, 7-day periods of happiness, and he just had one. And he's just like, something's going on here. You're saving lives. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And I'm here for it. And I will do anything and everything I can to help more and more people transition through this intense anxiety that is dominating their life, and move them to a place of freedom and open-hearted connection with just the aliveness of life. Because it's a beautiful thing to watch. It's a beautiful thing to see someone go through that transition. And it's most beautiful of all to see them on the other side with this happiness and spring in their step and connection, and like relationships are improving, and connection with parents or children or whatever. All these things are improving. It's an amazing, amazing thing to see. So that's why I'm here. And boy, it got dark while I'm sitting here talking. That's cool. I usually shoot these in the morning, but too many client sessions. Thank you all for signing up. Yeah. So I hope this has been helpful. I know it wasn't really a 1, 2, 3 systematic step-by-step approach of what to do when you're going through a moment of freak out. It's more of a high-level overview of what anxiety is and how we can look at dealing with it. So I hope this finds the ears that and the eyes that need to see it. Again, I'm Kirby. I am a specialist in trauma and attachment theory, and I hope this has been helpful for your day. Peace.